The morning I found out, I was holding her fitness tracker in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. The coffee went cold. The tracker showed her at the Riverside Inn on Thursday night, the same night she told me she was working late at the clinic. I stood in our kitchen for 4 minutes without moving. Then I set down the mug, opened my laptop, and started building a case. My name is Garrett Mulvaney. I'm 47 years old, a fire investigator for the Chattanooga Fire Marshal's Office. I've spent 19 years learning how to read a scene after the fact, what started the burn, where it spread, what the evidence says versus what the witness claims. That training is the only reason I didn't blow up my life on a Tuesday morning in February. Nadia and I met 14 years ago at a friend's cookout on Signal Mountain. She was a physical therapist at a sports rehab clinic downtown, funny and sharp, the kind of woman who remembered every detail of every conversation. We got married after 2 years, bought a split level on the east side of Chattanooga with a back deck that looked out over a ridge of Tennessee pines. We had a son, Owen, who was 9, and a daughter, Petra, who had just turned 6. By any measure, we had a good life. My salary was steady. Hers had grown significantly. She'd become lead therapist and was managing 3 junior PTs. We weren't rich, but we were solid. Solid enough that I didn't notice the cracks until they were canyons. The first sign I missed came in November. Nadia started going to the gym before work 3 days a week, which was new. She'd never been much of a morning person. I was the one who dragged himself out at 5:30 for runs. When I mentioned it, she said her doctor told her to work on her cardio. Reasonable. I let it go. Then in December, she started keeping her phone face down on the table at dinner. Small thing. But I noticed that when it buzzed, she'd glance at it, and the corner of her mouth would twitch. Not quite a smile, not quite a flinch. Something in between. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked one evening while Owen was doing homework at the kitchen island. "Just the clinic group chat. Scheduling stuff." She didn't look up from her plate. I nodded, kept eating, but I filed it. January brought a new behavior. She started going to bed early, around 9:30, which meant she was asleep, or pretending to be, by the time I came upstairs. We hadn't been intimate in 6 weeks, which I chalked up to the winter, to work stress, to the kind of slow drift that happens in long marriages. I told myself it was temporary. The last flag before everything broke open was in late January. I came home to find Nadia on the back deck, phone pressed hard to her ear, speaking low and fast. She saw me through the glass door and her face went through 3 expressions in 1 second. Caught, composed, casual. She held up a finger. I went inside and made dinner. By the time she came in, she was breezy. "That was the clinic director," she said, pouring herself a glass of wine. "Everything okay?" "Insurance headache, boring stuff." She smiled easily. That smile. I'd seen it on witnesses, the kind that's been rehearsed. But what actually broke everything open was so simple it almost made me laugh. It was a Saturday morning in February. Nadia was showering. I was in the bedroom and noticed her Fitbit on the nightstand. She'd taken it off to charge and left it synced to the app on my old tablet, the one we kept on the bedside table for the kids' audiobooks. I opened the tablet to put on Owen's story from the night before, and the Fitbit app was still open. I don't know why I looked at the location history. Maybe the fire investigator in me just reads everything. The data showed her location on Thursday evening. Riverside Inn, downtown Chattanooga, from 6:47 p.m. to 9:23 p.m. She had told me she was covering a late intake assessment at the clinic. The clinic was on the opposite end of town from the Riverside Inn, not a quick detour, not a wrong turn. My chest went tight. My hands stayed still. That matters. I've learned over 19 years that the moment your hands stop being useful is the moment you lose a scene. I set the tablet down carefully, went to the kitchen, poured the coffee, and stood there for 4 minutes running the numbers. Could be innocent. Client meeting at the hotel bar. A colleague visiting from out of state. I made myself list every alternative before I let myself think the obvious thought. But there were too many flags stacked behind this one. I couldn't explain them all away. I did not call her name. I did not confront her when she came downstairs in her towel, hair wet, asking if I'd made enough coffee for 2. I handed her a mug and said the morning felt like a good day for a hike with the kids. She agreed. We spent 3 hours on the Chickamauga Creek Trail as a family. Owen threw rocks into the water. Petra found a salamander. Nadia walked beside me and held my hand on the narrow parts. I smiled when she smiled. Inside, I was already building the file. That afternoon, while Nadia took the kids to her mother's for Sunday dinner, I'd begged off with a headache. I sat at my desk and worked. First, I screenshotted every day of her Fitbit location history going back to October. I emailed the screenshots to a personal account Nadia didn't know about, one I'd created years ago for freelance consulting work. Then I pulled up our joint bank statements. Nothing obviously wrong, but I noticed a pattern. Every other Friday, $300 moved to an account labeled NT Savings. I had assumed that was an automatic transfer we'd set up years ago. I checked. We hadn't. I went through her gym check-ins on the Fitbit data. Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She was at the gym. Consistent. But Tuesdays and Thursdays showed irregular locations. The Riverside Inn appeared 4 times in the past 3 months. Twice there was a location called Outlook Point, a picnic area above the river, for about 45 minutes each time. 15 years ago I would have called her right then. I would have shouted, accused, demanded, but I'm not 30 anymore, and I know what happens when you blow the scene before you've collected everything. I called my attorney on Monday morning from my car in the fire marshal's parking lot. Her name was Patricia Okafor. Family law, 22 years. No nonsense. I'd been referred to her by a colleague who'd been through his own divorce 3 years earlier. I need to document everything before I say a word to her, I told Patricia. Good instinct. Don't move any joint funds, don't tip her off. What do you have so far? You. I walked her through the Fitbit data, the bank transfer, the behavioral changes. She listened without interrupting. That location data is going to be your foundation, she said. Get me screenshots with timestamps. And I want you to find out who the other person is, because if this goes to court, character matters. She told me to monitor but not spy illegally. No hacking, no recording without consent. The Fitbit data was fair game because it was synced to a shared household device. The bank statements were joint accounts, fully accessible. Anything else had to come from observation or public record. I started keeping a log, a plain Word document saved to an encrypted drive, dated entries. Every night I recorded what I'd noticed, where Nadia said she was, whether the Fitbit confirmed it, what time she got home, the tone of her voice when she talked about work. Every entry was dry and factual, the way I write incident reports. 2 weeks in, I got the break I needed, and it came through Owen. My son was 9, curious, chatty. He mentioned at dinner one night that Mom's friend from the gym had brought coffee to the clinic to surprise her. What's his name? I asked, keeping my voice light. I don't know. I didn't meet him. Mom mentioned it on the phone. He was already thinking about something else, reaching for the bread. His name turned out to be Ferris Caldwell. I found him by cross-referencing the clinic's community events page, where a group photo from a charity 5K in October showed Nadia laughing next to a man I didn't recognize. I pulled his name from the caption. Ferris Caldwell, physical therapist at a competing clinic across town. Looked about 44. I ran him through public records out of professional habit. He was married. But what stopped my blood cold was the name of his wife. Jess Caldwell. Née Whitmore. Jess Whitmore, who was one of Nadia's closest friends, who had been a bridesmaid at our wedding, who had dinner at our house twice a year and texted Nadia memes about parenting. The woman sitting across from me at our own table didn't know her husband was sleeping with her best friend. I sat with that information for 48 hours. I needed to decide how to use it, and whether to use it at all. Patricia's advice was measured. Don't contact the wife yet. That's a card you play once and timing matters. Get your filing in order first. I had everything documented by the first week of March. 14 incidents logged. Fitbit location data printed and timestamped. Bank records showing $4,800 diverted to the NT savings account over 6 months. I'd confirmed with our bank it was opened in Nadia's name alone. In September, Patricia filed the petition for divorce on a Wednesday morning. I requested a temporary order freezing all joint accounts and establishing a temporary custody schedule. That evening, at 6:15, a process server knocked on our front door. I was in the kitchen helping Petra with a puzzle. I heard the knock. I heard the door open. I heard Nadia's voice go very quiet, very fast. She came into the kitchen 2 minutes later holding the papers with both hands, the way you hold something that might bite you. What is this? Her voice was controlled, but her eyes weren't. I stood up slowly and moved Petra's puzzle pieces to one side. Petra, go find Owen. Tell him dinner's in 20 minutes. Petra looked between us and went down the hall. When she was out of earshot, Nadia set the papers on the counter. Garrett, What did you do? I filed for divorce, I said, and I had our joint accounts frozen. Why would you... She stopped herself, recalibrated. Can we talk about this? Whatever you think is happening, the Riverside Inn, I said. November 14th, December 5th, January 9th, January 23rd. The color left her face in a sheet. The Fitbit was synced to the tablet, I said. The one by the bed. She put a hand on the counter. Not for drama. She needed the support. It's not what you think, she said, which is what people say when it's exactly what you think. Ferris Caldwell, I said. She closed her eyes. Jess's husband, I added. Garrett. Does she know? No. She said it fast, almost before I finished. She doesn't know. Please don't. I'm not going to blow up Jess's life just to hurt you, I said. But I want you to understand that I have all of it. Every date, every location, every dollar you move to that NT savings account. My attorney has copies. The court has copies. She tried one more angle. We can go to counseling. For the kids. You should have thought about the kids when you were at the Riverside Inn. I wasn't happy. I felt invisible. Her voice cracked. You felt invisible, so you chose the husband of your best friend. I kept my voice flat. That's not a cry for help, Nadia. That's a decision. She didn't answer that. Her attorney, a woman named Sonia Briggs, filed a response the following week claiming the Fitbit data was inadmissible as it constituted covert surveillance. Patricia dismantled that in one paragraph. The device was synced voluntarily to a shared household tablet. There was no interception, no hacking, no violation. The data stood. The NT savings account came out in financial disclosure. $4,850. Small in the scheme of things, but the pattern of concealment mattered. Sonia tried to argue it was Nadia's personal savings for a family vacation. Our bank records showed she'd stopped contributing to the joint vacation fund the same month she opened the separate account. The judge noted the timing. Custody evaluation was completed over 5 weeks. I had documentation of school pickups, medical appointments, Owen's baseball schedule, Petra's speech therapy sessions. I'd been the one taking her since age 4. The evaluator's report recommended 50-50 with primary residence of the family home, which stayed with me until the house sold. 2 months after filing, I wrote an anonymous letter. I kept it brief and factual. No emotion, no details about my own divorce. Just the name of the hotel, 4 dates, and a sentence. Your husband was not at the gym on these evenings. I mailed it to Jess Caldwell's workplace address from a post office in a different zip code. I don't know what she did with it. I only know that Ferris was out of Nadia's life within 3 weeks of that letter. The divorce finalized in late May. The split level sold in June. After the mortgage and fees, we each took $112,000 from the equity. I found a 3-bedroom ranch house 6 minutes from the kids' school. Nadia rented a condo downtown. The custody schedule held at 50-50, alternating weeks. Ferris and Jess Caldwell separated in April. Jess moved back to her parents' place in Nashville with their 2 kids. She and Nadia had not spoken since. Nadia's clinic director learned, through the grapevine, the way these things travel in mid-sized cities, that the affair had been with a colleague at a partner facility. The professional relationship between the 2 clinics cooled. Nadia wasn't fired, but she wasn't promoted to clinic director that fall the way she'd been expecting. She took it hard. By August, I had settled into a rhythm I hadn't expected to feel so natural. Owen was playing baseball 3 nights a week. Petra had started doing better in school now that the house wasn't filled with attention neither of them could name. Both kids chose to spend an extra night with me most weeks, and Nadia, to her credit, didn't fight it. I ran into Jess at a school fundraiser in September. She looked thinner and she'd cut her hair short. We stood by the coffee table and talked for a few minutes about nothing much. Before she left, she touched my arm briefly. I'm sorry, she said, for all of it. You didn't do anything, I told her. She shook her head like she wasn't so sure, and then she went to find her kids. I drove home that night through the Tennessee dark, windows down, past the ridge of pines behind the old house, and I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Not happiness exactly. Clearness. Like a scene after the smoke finally settles, and you can see exactly where the fire started, and how it moved, and what it touched, and what it left standing. What I've learned on the other side of it is this. Your instincts are data. When you feel something wrong, document before you react. Evidence is patience made visible. And the truth always travels. You just have to give it time. What would you have done? Would you have confronted her the morning you found out? Or would you have done what I did? Built the file first and let her walk into it? If this story hit close to home, don't go anywhere. Next time, I'm telling you about a man who found something in his own garage that made him question every conversation he'd had with his wife for 3 years. You're not going to see the ending coming.